welcome to the Product of the 80's podcast. I am your host this evening, Mr. Jay here. Some of you know me as Jamar. Some of you know me from Black V from other podcasts that we have. I have great guests with me today, especially my special guest, Marques Ogden, Hall of not well, his brother is the Hall of Fame, but professional football player. Going to go down is an amazing three-time best-selling author. Who knows how many books he's going to release in the future, as well as I have a motivation. He's a motivational speaker, travels not only the U.S. but the world, talking and speaking and interacting people and getting us to do or to see the greatest tool and strength we have, which ourselves, and being able to pull from that. And two of the key words that I always liked ever since I've got put on and get to understand who this man is and what he speaks about is leadership and accountability. And accountability is so big on any level, but especially a big key in such a huge tool to use growing up or coming from the community that I, as well as a lot of the people that I have on this panel right here, who I have with me, Ernest White, who one time was my former boss, who's a big brother to me and a leader who's done many things in the community. He's jumped off. And then we got RC in the background, who is a brother who's doing many things in the community on the policing end, as well as not just on the policing end, but bridging the gap. And before we get started, I wanted to go ahead and play a video from, I got to find the video. I just had the video. Oh my goodness. It's not my best day. Here we go. I wanted to play a video of who is Marques Ogden. So those out there who do not know, you will know and understand why this man is so important and why he is such an esteemed guest. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up so we can play it. And please bear with me. And go ahead and start it, Big Chick. My producer's here.
I currently now live in Raleigh, North Carolina with my wife and two daughters. I am a national, international keynote speaker, executive coach, business consultant, three-time best-selling author, brand ambassador, and I'm the co-host of the Lev and Marcus Show. We are a globally ranked top 1.5% most listened to podcast worldwide. I went to Howard University in Washington, D.C., and I played football for the Bison. I was very fortunate to get a scholarship to Howard, and I went there and did the best I could to excel in both academics and athletics. Had a nice career in the National Football League for almost 6 years. I ended up after my career struggling immensely with alcohol, addiction, painkillers, nightlife. I wasn't prepared to transition into life after football. Finally, after about 6 months, I founded Caden Premier Enterprises. With hard work, with focus, with strategy, and with execution, we became the largest African-American subcontractor in the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. But unfortunately, as the company grew and had a lot of success, that success went straight to my head. And as a result of that, my best employees started to leave the company. The next year in 2013, I had to declare a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina after losing everything. I ended up taking a job as a custodian, making $8.25 an hour on the graveyard shift. While working on my shift, I ended up having my rock bottom spoiled milk moment of clarity. I was taking the trash out like I did every day on my shift around 4:30 in the morning. When I went to throw the trash in the trash can, I didn't see there was a rip on the front side of the bag. When I threw the trash bag towards the trash can, all of that trash came right back on my body. Spoiled, protruding, nasty milk, rotten meat, nasty garbage came all back on me. I cleaned myself up. I sat down on the curb, put my head in my hands, and I started to cry. And I realized right at that moment, there was no accountability and or responsibility in my life. I went home and I wrote down my 3 biggest strengths, and I realized I want to become a keynote speaker to help others succeed where I failed. And in the last 6 years, our brand has worked for over 38 Fortune 500 brands. Of the 38, 15 are Fortune 100 and 5 are Fortune 25. So as a result of where we are today, we love bringing value to our clients to help them achieve massive success in their lives.
First of all, I'm just going to give you a round of applause on the journey, because even when you got to the place where most of us like, man, we made it. We had the NFL. We done made it. Man, we done graduated from Howard. We made it. And you still talk about the different challenges, and will you still bring up that there were still challenges for you to go through and through that, and then you weren't complete or there as you felt you needed to be or should be as a person, as a man, and so forth. So I applaud you for the journey, and I'm excited to learn more about it. And first of all, how are you today, sir?
Doing well, Jay. Thanks for asking, man. I'm doing well. How about you yourself? You doing all right?
Man, nervous, man. Normally I'm cool, cool and everything, but man, I got more learned about you the more excited I was. Got it more excited. I was like, man, I thought I was nervous with Hash, but man, this is crazy. So, I asked these brothers here today to join us during this discussion, more or less because they do pivotal things within their community as well. And both of them do a lot of speaking in front of a lot of people. And both of them are going places and hope to even someday achieve that reach and that level that you are at, or even if beyond. And so, again, when I do this podcast, I try to not only get to interview people, but bring along people who I feel this conversation may benefit the most. Well, I definitely gonna benefit from me, but somebody else to bring along in that journey. So I definitely hope you don't mind. I brought these brothers who have been inspirational to me to this conversation.
No, absolutely not, man.
Okay. So as much as I want to talk about the accomplishments and everything else, I think the key to any success story is the foundation. Who is Marques Ogden, and where are you from? Well, we know you're from DC, right? Born and raised.
That's right. Northeast DC. That's right.
So that's dope. But who you are, tell us a little bit about your childhood, the brief synopsis of your childhood growing up, and basically up until college, if you can, a little bit.
Yeah, sir. I'm from Washington, D.C. I went to Stevens Elementary School in downtown Washington, D.C. My maternal grandparents were from Washington. Well, they lived in Washington, D.C. They lived in Northwest D.C. So I went to elementary school where my grandmother's, one of her good friends was the principal. Stevens Elementary, again, right in the heart of downtown Washington, D.C. Went there, loved it, got raised on education. Man, we probably drove about 30 minutes each way to school. My dad actually worked downtown in Washington, D.C., right around the corner from the White House. He was one of the first, actually, he was the first African-American bank manager for the Federal Home Loans Bank of New York in their D.C. office, working on New York Avenue. So grew up in a really affluent home. Things were nice. Things were comfortable. I had a good childhood, but then things got a little bit more difficult when our mother left us, and then we were raised by a single father at that time, which is very, very rare. And my dad was the best, and he ended up losing his job. He got sick with kidney failure from obesity and other things. He was a smoker, things of that nature. And then when his health declined, he put all of his savings into making sure that my brother Jonathan is the first pick of the Ravens in 1996, Hall of Famer. I'm actually in Howard Athletics Hall of Fame myself. My dad and I both are in that regard. So that's good. My dad's in it for track. I'm in it for football. And, from there, man, it got hard. I mean, money was tight. They went from like having everything that I wanted to then when I was in middle school, going to high school, things got really tough, man. I mean, money was not plentiful. And it was just really, really hard for me and my dad. And so then I ended up getting a scholarship, thank goodness, to go play football for the Bison. So the only offer that I got was to the Howard University. But I tell all the kids when I speak at different colleges or sports teams, all those offers you get, it's amazing. That's phenomenal. You can only go to one college and play. Mm-hmm. So again, I took full advantage of the opportunity. Went to Howard University, played for the Bison, became a 4-year starter. And I had one of the best times of my life playing in Washington, D.C., where my dad also played. He was a football player at Howard as well. So I continued the bloodline, and it was just absolutely awesome in that regard.
Oh, dope.
Nice.
That's awesome. So a friend of mine who is a friend of yours told me that when you were younger, a famous head coach used to give you rides to school and have you sit and watch film with them. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you want to touch on that briefly real quick as to who that person was and that experience.
Yeah, man. So for me, I mean, I got a chance to really be around football for many years. So, you know, what Hesh is talking about is he didn't get me rides to school, but I got a chance to watch and learn and observe Bill Belichick when he was picked up by the Ravens as a kind of like an assistant. He had just been fired from the Cleveland Browns, and Ted Marchibroda was the head coach of the Ravens at that time. And so he picked up. So that was, I mean, the Ravens had some great coaches on that staff, man. They had Bill Belichick for a short time. They had Eric Mangini, who ended up becoming the head coach of the Jets. They had Ken Wiesenhunt, who became the head coach of the Chargers. And then as it progressed, they had people like Marvin Lewis, who was the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. They had on their staff Jack Del Rio, became my head coach with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Anthony, they had, they had a tremendous amount of people on that staff. Rex Ryan was on that staff, became head coach of the Bills and the Jets. Oh, yeah, man, had all kinds of stuff, man. So, but I got to learn from Bill Belichick because Bill really took a lot of time to kind of educate my brother and Ray Lewis, who were the Ravens' first 2 draft picks ever. John went number 4 overall. Ray went number 25. So learning from Bill and seeing what it was like to be under the tutelage of a professional that my brother got, Ray got, and I kind of picked up on that myself, allowed me to see a lot of things that I didn't get a chance to really think about or see in that regard going on.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to ask you briefly about Howard and what's that experience like? I think that's something that a lot of us, especially from the Midwest, we don't always get to venture out and hear too much about. But when I went to DC and experienced DC and I got to learn, I was like, whoa, this is different.
It's a different breed, man. Like Howard was and still is the mecca when it comes to HBCUs, right? So when I was in college, I mean, we had like Lil Wayne, Cash Money. They came to perform at the Ira Aldridge Center. On the Yard, you had guys like DMX, you had Jay-Z, you had, I wasn't there. He came a couple weeks before I got there. Biggie was there. I did get a chance to see guys like, Tank the Locks. I mean, you name it, man. They were all at Howard, man. So going there and then playing football there and then continuing that legacy and kind of that tradition, it was everything in that regard. So for me, man, Howard was everything. And the fact that my dad went there, I mean, it just made it that much greater.
Legacy. That's awesome. And so learning about something about your father, how does that feel with the fact that you followed in your father's footsteps, going to the same university and both graduating and becoming legacy, basically, for lack of better words? How does that feel?
It's absolutely amazing, especially because the fact that I didn't think I was going to be able to play football after high school because I hadn't had any offers at all. And Howard came to my home with about 2 weeks left in the signing period. And at the table, Coach Steve Wilson, who's also a Howard grad, played for the Broncos and for the Cowboys. He played for the Cowboys under Tom Landry as a safety in a corner. And I remember Steve making the offer to my parents to give me a full scholarship to play football. And I remember Steve telling my mom and dad that if Marques does what he's supposed to do, he could be the first O-lineman ever drafted into the National Football League from Howard University. And I thought he was full of it. But with his tutelage and with his heart, with his knowledge, and with my great coaches, Fred Dean, who was one of the Hogs for the Redskins, and I got to be around Coach Alvin Harper, who played for the Cowboys, wide receiver. So, I mean, you name it, man. And Coach Wilson was correct. I was drafted into the National Football League in 2003 by the Jaguars and Jack Del Rio, and I'm still today the only offensive lineman ever drafted from Howard University into the National Football League.
There's two ways I want to approach that. That is so amazing is the first thing I want to say. And then the second thing I want to add to it is like, we got to get more. We got to get more. Like, so it's a privilege again, because you've done something that's legendary. And not many people, there's nobody else can say that. But at the same time, it's like, a la Coach Prime, like, our ice is cold like their ice is cold. So that's amazing, and I commend you on that. And before we go on, so far what you heard, did you guys have any questions for him before we go on to the next thing? Anything you want to ask him or anything like that so far from what you guys have heard?
Yeah, I do. Marcus, can you speak about the level of a discipline that it takes to be successful in college and also to make it to the NFL? Like, explain how it's different than just your average college athlete.
Going from high school to college is hard. Going from college to the NFL is almost impossible. It takes a level of discipline. It takes a level of commitment. It takes a level of fortitude. It takes a level of mindset shift capability to get to that point. And if you want to be great, if you want to get to the National Football League, if you want to stay in the National Football League, you better perfect your craft every single day. And there is no off day. There is none. There is no off season. The minute you let your body get out of shape and you have to try to get back into shape, you are putting it under a lot of stress, which opens you up for injuries and for things that aren't going to be good for you and for your career. So again, the NFL is one of the hardest things to get into, to stay in. And if you don't have the discipline, if you don't have the work ethic, if you don't have the commitment, if you are not dedicated to your craft, you will get found out by the veterans, and then you will be out the door.
Because everybody's competing for a job.
Yep.
Man, what about you, Mr. White? You got anything you want to ask the brother before we go on to the next part?
Yeah, I got 68 questions I want to ask, but that I know you spoke to in the one video about your why. What was your why moment? I know you said the rock bottom part, but what was your why, and how did you develop that into what we see today? And I know just real quick, but
No, it's a great question. It's a great question. So the why really is my daughters, my stepdaughter and my daughter. And so I started speaking September 2013. My daughter was born in July of 2014. So as I was progressing and trying to get that first speaking job, her and then my stepdaughter, who at the time was probably like just turned 9, they were my why. And what's interesting is every time I was told no, every time I was told, you're not gonna get this done, you're not good enough. I mean, I heard it all, right? I just thought about, well, I want my girls to have a better life than I did. And my dad was phenomenal, but I wanted that. And it's interesting. So even now and today, I am divorced. I'm no longer married to my daughter's mom. And that was tough. And I actually had to move out November 1st of 2022 into a 2-bedroom broken down apartment. And I was struggling for about 2.5 months. I went wild, man. Like drinking part. I mean, I went wild, going out with women. I went off the chain, man. And I had to get myself back together. And then I realized, man, I said, if I don't make a change, then my daughters aren't going to have something that they can really be proud of and I can really leave for them. And so I just got focused and I got realigned and I actually bought my dream home. Let's see, I moved out November 1st, 2022. I bought my dream home about 7.5 months later, May of 2023, 6 months ahead of schedule. So I'm in a brand new home now. I'm new construction. I'm the first to live in it, 3,100 square foot, bought over. And I'm saying this because I want people who are listening to understand, right? Dedication, my why. I bought a $500,000 house, basically about 9 to 10 months after filing for divorce on my own, after acting a fool for 2.5 months, after like just going off the chain. And I leaned into my why and what I'm able to do. And I'm the only single person in my entire development so far. They're building at 1,200 homes. I think there's about maybe 200 built so far. Of 200 people, I'm the only one that is single living in our community. And again, if you're listening to this, if you're having difficult times or hard times, like I was I was probably 14 months ago, you can turn it around too. But understand that your why becomes your how, that becomes your everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations on that.
Congratulations. Woo. Hey, the turn up was short lived, but
thanks for sharing.
All right. So the next thing I have to ask you is, I learned about your youth as we're working our way up, and I know I have you for a limited time. Is when was that you've made it to the league, and when was that, oh crap, I'm here now moment? Like this is like I'm here now. Like what was that welcome to the NFL moment for you?
So playing the Minnesota Vikings in their old dome and having Rhaegar, the Viking, come out on his motorcycle, super loud. You got 80,000 fans because that was their first home opener preseason game. Fans are blazing 80,000, 85,000 plus. You can't hear anything. You're like looking around. It's all purple. You don't see any type of Jaguar colors, nothing. I'm like, yep, this is no longer college. I love Howard to death, and it was an amazing, amazing school. And for homecoming, the best we would get, because again, we had a smaller stadium, was maybe like 5,000, maybe 6 if we were lucky. Like bleachers would fill up and people would sit like in the corner, stuff like that. Now the yard would have probably, I don't know, 30, 40,000 people jammed into that, like sardines, right? But on the field, you couldn't have more than 5,000 or 6,000. So going to the Vikings, and as a rookie, again, a game was at their home at the Metrodome, not having the comfort of the Jaguar fans, not having the comfort of seeing people in the stadium that were going to support you. So if you sucked, that they were going to still, keep you going. In Minnesota, if you sucked, they were going to let you know it. So when I got to that, I was like, wow, man, this is it. And so that's when I was like, yep, I'm no longer, in at Howard. I'm no longer, at Jacksonville, where we have the comfort of our fans. And, this is the NFL. And if you don't show up, you will get shipped out.
Woo. Wow. Any as we breeze through this part, because this is definitely more than about the NFL, but I definitely felt like it would be a disservice if I didn't ask, like, who, if you can remember, who player-wise did you feel like, oh my goodness, I do not want to have to go against this guy again?
So there were some great guys, man. As a player against an opposing player, I would probably say Jason Taylor was just a phenomenal defensive end, super long, great knee bend, great bending of his hips, and could get pressure constantly. Then I would say, as far as my teammate at practice, that was literally just when he wanted to go, it was almost impossible to block him. You had to have some really great leverage on him, was Albert Hainsworth.
Really?
So, oh yeah, man. I mean, people talk about Aaron Donald, right? So Aaron Donald's what, 6'2", 275, 280. He's Hall of Fame. Yeah, he's great. But I mean, that's not. I mean, it's good, but Aaron will get around, but he's not going to but that right there, literally, you're talking about 350, 360 pounds,
That's my team right there.
6'5", and his get off. And I tell this to and everybody will agree with this that knows the position that played against him in that era. His get off was faster than Aaron Donald's.
Woo!
When he got off the football, he was gone. So you combine that get off, that size, that weight, there's just a lot of things barreling down the pike. So that was just a lot of guy to have to block. And I mean, I had some monsters too, man. I had him. I had Big John Henderson. I had Marcus Stroud. I had, Sam Adams when he was playing. I mean, I had some guys that I played against, man, in practice. That was like, man, the game is so much easier than practice because these guys just went out every day, all day.
Oh yeah, you got game day was a break for you.
Oh yeah, man, playing those juggernauts, man. You kidding me? It was like relief. Thank you.
Relief. I seen a picture you had with I'm assuming you got to meet. Was it John Randall? I don't remember his name like that.
John Randall, that's right. John Randall.
Yeah, I seen that picture and I was like, man, that's a legend right there.
John Randall was absolutely phenomenal. He was what I call, he was the master intimidator. He was the master psych you out, and you literally were going to feel it. And that's what he did. I mean, he would get in your head and he would destroy you mentally. And you would get so focused on trying to talk trash back to him that it would get you out of your game. And then at that point, it was just all about him making plays.
Wow. So before we jump into the next phase, anybody got any other questions about the playing day before we jump into the next part? If you can, okay. So if you can briefly, you retire, you're done. You're like, okay, my playing days is done, and then you go off to start this amazing, beautiful company, organization. And tell me about that. Your first project that you started, that you were a part of, that was doing amazing things, and how did that turn about of it all come about?
So I got into construction. I built with my business partner, Caden Premier Enterprises. We became the largest African-American owned subcontracting company in the area of site work in Baltimore City. We were crushing it. We were minority certified, which means I was the majority owner. I owned 51% of the organization. It was proven by the stock certificates. We were certified with the city of Baltimore as a minority contractor, the state of Maryland, DC, Virginia, and also Pennsylvania. And we really did phenomenal. We grew to an 8-figure business in about 3 years, and 8-figure business a year in 3 years. And we were just on fire and we were killing it. But unfortunately, I wasn't prepared to handle the success of Caden, all the money coming my way, the windfall, the notoriety, the club life, all these things. I just wasn't ready for it. And as a result of that, I ended up making some mistakes, getting really arrogant, getting really pompous, getting really lost discipline. I lost sight of what mattered most. And then I ended up losing everything in 2013 and had to move to Raleigh with only $400 to my name.
Ooh. So we're in Raleigh. We're working a night job. Mm-hmm. We're going through it and just going through the motions. $8 an hour. In 2013, $8 an hour just wasn't enough to cut it at all. Wow. So you're going through the motions. You're just working your nighttime and you hit rock bottom. Mm-hmm. You're sitting there, you're thinking it, you go back and you say, what are my 3 greatest strengths? And I think in the video, you didn't really go into depth of it. So can I ask you now, when you were asking yourself that, what did you come up with at the time that were your 3 greatest strengths?
So I was a good communicator. I wanted to help people, and I was a really good storyteller. And so I felt that with those things as attributes, it made sense for me to try to become a speaker and start speaking to help others succeed where I failed. Launched the business in September 2013, didn't get a paid speaking job for the first 2.5 years. Finally got my first paid speaking job April 2016 with Miller Mock College. Didn't get a lot of traction after that. Didn't get a lot of success after that. I ended up getting into what's called the NAPSA program, National Athletic Professional Success Academy program. Got into that through the NFL and the NFL Retired Players Association. It was at Penn State. And that program helped to change my life around how to talk to people, how to communicate, how to tell people what I'm doing, what I wanted to do. And as a result of that, learn the business. And then we started to speak for more companies, more Fortune 500, more Fortune 100, corporate to universities, to non-for-profits, to tech, to real estate, you name it. And now, here we are. I mean, I got back from I got back from Los Cabos, San Lucas, Mexico at 1:00 this morning. I landed at 12:30, got home at 1. My house was not like I left it due to my person that was doing to watch my dog. So I had to clean my house up and I had to make some adjustments, and then went to bed at 3:30, woke up at 6:45, got to the gym, had a full day. And you guys are my last podcast. I've done 3 podcasts, 1 virtual talk, probably like 4 or 5 sales calls, coaching calls. And then I'm going to make dinner for my daughter. And then from there, man, it is just rest and relax for the night. But the point I'm trying to make to people is, if you really want to do something like this, understand, like we talked about earlier, like Hughes was talking about earlier, it's discipline. It's not going to come overnight. It's not going to happen easily. And let's be real, as an African-American speaker, you better be the best of the best doing your craft. Because if you're just average, you're not going to get anything, or you'll get just that average job in that regard at best.
I'm gonna leave that to RC right there with the next part then, because that brother we just talked today, and there's some amazing things he was telling me, and just hearing you speak, it's right on there. So I don't know, RC, if you wanted to go.
Marcus, you're so right. Being a speaker, like, being good is one thing, but if you want to be the best of the best, to be great, like, you have to be a master craftsman. That's what we learned when I was playing college football. That's what our coaches taught us. So it's practicing when nobody's around, practicing in front of other people, taking smaller gigs at the beginning that are unpaid. Like you said, you went 2 years. I think I went 2 years as well before I got my first paid one. And it's just constantly going after it, time and time again, making sure that you're better than you were the last time. And you may not see the growth all at once, but if you just keep going piece by piece with that speaking thing, you will most certainly be better. As it relates to law enforcement, that's what I try to do. I try to not only know my stuff, but be able to explain it to people in a way that they can understand it easily, so they can digest it easily and take it back and tell someone else and say, hey, RC taught me this, or RC taught me that when I was being presented to him today.
That comes down to RC. There's 4 keys to a great leader: innovation or innovative, somebody that can help people with being a great visionary, somebody that can relate to people, and the 4th is somebody that can do what we call decipher or make sense of things for people as easy as possible in that regard. So by doing that, it really helps people to understand that when you're able to make sense of things easier and much more quick, then great things happen. So if you're wanting to be a speaker, you better be able to connect with people and help them understand your message, and that what you can bring to the table is going to help them in a concise and efficient manner.
That's what I do. That's what I do. That's what I practice.
Got to. Otherwise, they're gonna move on to somebody else and figure out, okay, well, all right, who can I work with that's going to do these things? And if you can't bring it all to the table, they're not going to. They don't either. They don't want you, or if they do take you, they're going to pay you nothing or way below the market value.
Yep.
Wow. Mr. White.
I'm over here taking notes, buddy.
So I think both of them play this role, and I'm learning within this business of podcasting. We've have another podcast that we produce, but Mr. White does this on a grand scale daily, not only with having people under him, but also with dealing with youth. So the next part, I think, was one of the key things. One of the key things I wanted to ask you is about the whole leadership aspect, and how did you strengthen yourself in that, and how was it that you go about that approach when you're out there speaking and teaching it or motivating for others to take that role?
So what I want people to understand is leadership, it's not a title, it's not a privilege, it's a responsibility to serve others that are struggling in their vision and where they're trying to go. So for me, I learned how to do three things. Number one, be a better active listener. Number two, be much more empathetic. And number three, how to be more compassionate. And as a result of that, it helped us greatly to get where we are today. I tell people all the time, there is a speech class, there is a debate class, there is a communications class, but we don't have a active listening class or a empathetic class or a compassionate class. The younger generation does not know how to do these things or excel at them. And because of that, they miss the mark. So if you're listening to this, learn how to do those three things. And when you bring that to the table, great things happen in that regard.
Marcus, it's funny you say that, because these are the things that I talk about inside when I go into police academies. How to actively listen, how to be more empathetic, and how to be more compassionate when you come across people, because a lot of times you're going to be meeting people on one of their worst days. And for them to feel important, you got to step back, let them talk to you, let them explain some things, and then hit off a point of what they said to let them know that, yes, you were just listening to them, and this just isn't another run-of-the-mill call.
Correct. And it's again, like, if you listen to this podcast, it needs to be a relationship business, not a transactional one. And people talk about, well, I want to go hunting. Well, that's great. If you go hunting, most times at night, you don't catch anything. Sometimes you do, which is great, right? But most times you don't, because it's the right opportunity, it's the wind, it's making sure you don't make any sound, it's got to make sure the game is in distance and you hit the mark, and there's a lot that goes into it. But when you're farming, you plant stuff and you let it grow. When it's time to pick the harvest, it's always there. This is what it's all about in business, right? You can't try to go out and shoot everything and kill game and bring it back to your house and then get fat off one thing. If you're planting harvest, if you're planting seeds, if you're planting fruits, if you're planting vegetables, if you're planting food, right? I mean, whatever the case may be, you can plant it and then let it grow from there. The minute you start trying to put yourself in a situation where you're constantly just always trying to do something else, as far as like go out there and get the quick transaction, at some point you're going to end up burning out.
Wow. So I that was the leadership part of it. And I guess the last one that is one of the key things was accountability. And that word right there, as I've grown up, has become more and more relevant to the choices I've made in my life, how I've had to adjust to become a better human being, a better person, a better father, a better friend, and better for myself was accountability. And that's something that, like you said earlier, a lot of times doesn't always get taught in our community. And so learning that was hard, because then you're fighting like, no, I know how to be. And then you start realizing it's easy to play the victim. It's easy to accept, and it's easy to point the finger and say somebody else is responsible for putting me where I'm at. But it's hard to look at yourself and say, what did I do to help myself get in this predicament? What choices did I or did I not make? Or what shortcut did I think that I can keep taking and get along with it? Or what, quote unquote, hustle that I keep thinking that was going to last forever instead of putting in the work. So if you can elaborate on that part of it.
So here's the thing, right? I'm taking note of this. If you want to be great in life, you better be accountable, because that is when people see that you know that you made a mistake and you've owned it and you fixed it and you moved on. And anybody that makes a mistake in my network, in my life, in my zone, and you own it, we're good. If you make a mistake and you don't own it and you want to shift blame, pass the buck, go down and try to say somebody else's fault, I got nothing for you. Nothing. And it all stems to saying, you know what? I screwed up. I did this wrong. Please work with me. Please help me to be a better person, a better man, a better woman, a better husband, a better wife, a better mother, a better father, and get better. And when people do that, I'm all for it. When you don't do that, I mean, I got nothing for you.
So yeah, that's a big one in my personal life and just growing up, and that causes me a lot of times as I'm learning. When you grow, I'm learning that also that part of it is with taking accountability is also when you growing with being responsible, taking accountability, even learning leadership. Everybody's not meant to make that journey. As much as we're taught to always want to bring everybody with us, everybody's not meant to make that journey with you as you're growing. I know Brother RC, has experiences it and goes through it, and I know my big bro Mr. White has gone through it. You go through it from a friendship level and from a family member level as you grow, and that can be hard. Was that hard for you at times? Was there moments where it was like there's relationships, there's people I love and care dearly, but we have to part at this point, at least for now?
Yeah, of course, man, because again, like there's people in my life that weren't trying to grow, weren't trying to advance, you know what I mean? And that's the point, I mean, again, that is the whole part. Like, I believe I'm divorced because it's like I literally grew and my kid's mom didn't, and we didn't have the same values, and we didn't have the same beliefs, we didn't have the same thought process, and that's life. And you have to recognize that, and you have to take that and move forward with dignity and understand, look, and be okay with it, because everybody is not meant to be in your life forever. And that's something that you have to really clearly understand and be okay with. If you keep people around you that don't belong around you, you will suffer. Again, not going to get into it on a deep level, but if I was still married, I would not be who I am today, business-wise, happiness-wise, fulfillment-wise. There's just no way. No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think just to speak to that as well, I'm a school counselor now, but I'm going to sit for the LPC, which is the professional counseling in the community. And that piece about healthy relationships and identifying what trauma looks like, what healthy relationships look like, resiliency, that is something that our youth today don't really know about. And something that, if you never fail, how do you know how to bounce back? How do you know how to get back up? That's one of those things. And I got a ton of notes down here from things that y'all have said. And I mean, it's nuggets that need to be taught on a daily basis just because, just like breathing, there's a lot of points where we talk about building resiliency, to be able to keep going when you can. I know you spoke to, you said something about Aristotle in one of your videos, in darkness, focus on the light. No one else is around you, and all these people that's supposed to support you aren't there. You need to keep going. You know what I mean? You need to stay focused. Don't take no for an answer, to continue building, like you said, that fresh start. You need that fresh start to get a different perspective on what's best for you, because we spend a lot of time helping people, and we help others more than we'll help ourselves. So once you start focusing back on you, retune and realign, I know he spoke about hustling, the alignment to where you want to be is a different perspective, because you're not just trying to get everything, you're trying to grow in the right space.
Yes.
And forward,
Absolutely.
I think that, so two things. One, when I think about accountability, because Jamar asked about that earlier, it's basically, for me, it's doing what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
Okay. If I say I was going to, complete a task, it's doing it and not having any excuses as to why I didn't get done. And then if I didn't do it, then it's, Okay, it's as simple as I didn't get it done. This is on me.
Yeah.
The second point I wanted to make about relationships is I've learned this myself. You really have to be comfortable being alone.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to be successful on a personal, but on a professional level too. And I've learned that being able to walk by myself has really cleared out and defined a lot of the relationships that I had in the past. When you have a focus, you can see who is for you because this is what they bring, and you can see who's just hanging around or who really is not for you and sometimes go out of their way to try to undermine you. So those are the key points I want to bring to the conversation when it comes to that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. People who are really not wanting your best interests at heart, at some point they will show it. And at that point, it's time for you to make the decision and make the visualization that you need to realize that they're not there for you, and then make the move and move on. And that's just life.
Right.
That's it's been a hard journey with that part, accepting that part to move on to leave behind. I mean, because you always think it as you grow and you starting to get to your dreams. We were taught to just like, yo, I can't wait to break. I'm gonna get my mama a house. I'm gonna get my cousins. And as you start growing and then you start looking behind you, in that entourage that you had and those people you wanted to bring with you start to fall back, and then you start to tell them no, or you tell them that you can't, and they don't start to understand it as that progress continues to happen, and it does become lonely, and you can fall into almost second guessing yourself, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right path? I didn't think that I'm not even successful yet, but even to that point of working towards it is a lonely ride, and no one prepared me for that. Like, it's just like, wow, like, as this grows, you're like, man. So, did you guys have? Well, first of all, before I asked them if they had anything more to ask you, was there anything from that you may have learned, of whatever case one of our other guests said, Mr. Ogden, that you may want to ask them before we go ahead and work towards closing out, and ask them if they got anything else they want to ask you?
No, man, these guys are great. They got some great insights on, relationships and healthiness and moving forward. And, that's something that I believe in. And as a man now, like I said, I've got my new phase of life and being divorced and looking at what I'm going forward. I definitely agree with that, because it makes me a happier, healthier person. It makes me a better dad, a better friend. And, it's made me understand I did the right thing, although it was the hard thing at the time I was going through it. It's absolutely the right thing.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's correct. Marcus, I've been where you are, like right now in this very moment. Like, I've been where you are before.
It's no fun.
Yeah.
It's no fun because you do have to start over, but it's not just from a financial point of view. It's from an emotional point of view. It's from a mental point of view. Like, how do you look at yourself when you look in the mirror? Are you happy with what you see, even though you're going through what you're going through? And do you have the positive coping mechanisms to handle the day-to-day of what is essentially looked at by a lot of people as a failure?
That's right. You got it.
Right.
You got it.
A lot of people
100% right.
Your marriage didn't work. You must have did something wrong. And I learned during that time that you don't always get to tell your story, your side of the story, right? And sometimes it may not even do you any good to tell your side of the story. It would be better to just show people that you have the ability to move on.
That's it. And that's where I'm at, man. Just trying to move on and go on with life, because there's nothing I can do. And the past is gone, and I don't want to be back where I was. And it's time to just be happy, be healthy, and move on.
If you're happy now, then you made the right decision, which is what I had to come to when I went through a divorce. Like, I made this decision. Okay.
All right.
I wasn't happy when I was there, but I can sleep now. I sleep a lot better. And I'm remarried now, but during that time, I slept a lot better almost immediately after making that decision.
Yep.
It was something that had to be done.
I get it. And I know exactly what you mean.
Mr. White, you got anything else you want to add?
No, we'll be here for another 30 minutes. I just appreciate you gentlemen sharing your story. I just learned about this podcast about 2:30, so I want to do a little bit of homework but I came to listen and learn, and I appreciate you all sharing, and I'm glad just to be a part of this.
Mr. Ogden, I want to thank you first and foremost for your wisdom, your words, and just amazing feedback, and for you guys, RC, Mr. White, for your amazing feedback and contribution to the conversation. Mr. Ogden, I appreciate the journey and the accomplishments, and want to congratulate you, and know that your story is not finished being written yet. So I'm sure there'll be more books, because I feel like you were just really getting started on taking on this world in this second round, and I'm rooting for you. And I'm just happy to know that I got to have this conversation with you. It's been a privilege. I've been kind of like bragging everybody, like, yeah, I'm talking to him. Yeah, I'm talking to Mr. August. So, I want you to know, like, you are the brother that I'm thankful. As much as your brother's success story, your journey is what makes your success, in my opinion, so much more dope, just so amazing and so real, and if anything, so relatable. Because I think all of us have been through a divorce at a point, and going through that, and all of us have been to that rock bottom where we felt like we lost everything. And you've been down, and you keep getting up. No scholarship. You got up. You got to Howard. You made it happen. You get in the NFL. You're done with that. You create a successful business. You get down. You get up. You spill the trash. You get down. You get up, and you just keep getting on up. So I'm rooting on you. I'm rooting for you in every fight, Mr.
Well, I appreciate it, gentlemen. Like I said, man, anytime you want me to come back, that'd be awesome. Just want to thank you for your time, man. And now I'm just gonna go do my fatherly duties and get her ready for bed, and then cook her dinner, and then go from there.
Hey, Power On, I want to thank all y'all. This is a AAA production brought to you by Truth Entertainment Films. I'm Jay Harris. That's Marques Ogden. That's Ernest White. That's RC with Huge Initiatives. Brought to you by Truth Entertainment Films. Thank you. God bless y'all. We out.